Hi everybody, hope you and yours are very well. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Chayei Sara, which means the life of Sarah. And in it, Eliezer, the faithful servant of Avrohom, is sent on a mission to find a wife for Yitzchak, Avrohom's son. And on his return trip with the righteous Rivka sees a man praying in the field in the afternoon, and a divine light is shining, and she asks who it is, and she hears it's Yitzchak. She's very moved by this. And it's interesting to note that the patriarchs each established a different time of daily prayer. Avrohom, Abraham, he instituted Shachris, the morning prayer. Yitzchak, as we see in this week's portion, he instituted Mincha, the afternoon prayer. And Yaakov, Jacob, he instituted Ma'ariv, the evening service. And there's something interesting about this, especially the Mincha part. Shachris in the morning, we figure we'll start off the day, but first I got to pray to God. Fine. Ma'ariv, evening services, I finish my day, got to thank God and pray to God. What about Mincha? Mincha is an interesting lesson for us. That even in the midst of the hullabaloo of the day, and I'm doing this deal, and my phone is ringing, my emails, and da-da-da-da, no, stop! Got to respond to God. We have to remember that God is really in charge. And this is an important idea, that we should acknowledge God all the time, even in the midst of our busyness. Which, by the way, sometimes leads to some interesting things. Some offices have a mincha service in their office. I was in a Judaica store in Lakewood, New Jersey, and all of a sudden, people are milling around and buying things. In the middle of the store, they start daily. They have a minyan, a quorum for mincha, the afternoon service. But also, sometimes you're on your own and you need a place to pray. So if I ever have to pray publicly, I'm not embarrassed. I'll find a quiet corner and I'll pray there. But one person was embarrassed to do that, so he went into a phone booth. Anyone remember what a phone booth is? And he made believe he's on the phone, and that's how he prayed the afternoon service. But he's noticed people looking at him a little odd. He didn't understand why. And then he came out of the phone booth, and there was a sign on top, out of order. And he had been there for 10, 15 minutes doing the afternoon prayers. But prayer is not only yes, we have designated times, morning, afternoon, evening, but it's not only in designated times, it could be not even designated places, as I mentioned. But even in times, any time, you need a prayer. Because in this week's portion, we have Eliezer praying by the well, that Hashem, God, should guide him to find the right one for Yitzchak, the right mate. And that's very important to realize, that we need to have that divine connection with God to use in our own words. It doesn't have to be the words of the prayer book alone. The words of the prayer book are very powerful, but not only that, but use our own words to talk to God about whatever I need. It could be a parking spot, it could be passing a test, it could be being successful at my job interview. Whatever it is, we should be communicating to God. There's a sweet story about a man who was in the airport, and he was on standby for a flight, but he was not in a rush, and he was studying, and two people looking at him say, "Hey, see the rabbi? He's on standby too, and he's praying that he gets onto the flight." So when the rabbi heard this, he said to himself, "Well, if they think I'm praying, I should pray to get onto the flight, because that would sanctify God's name." So he closed the books that he was studying, and he took out a prayer book, and he took out a Tehillim, book of Psalms, and he started praying. And lo and behold, not that long after, Rabbi so-and-so coming up, and these guys come running, "Hey, why does he get to go on the flight? We registered here earlier." And the flight attendant said, "I don't know what you're talking about. You need 2 seats. He's only one. There's only 1 seat available, so he gets the spot." So that was very, very special that he prayed, and that's what he got. Because prayer's for everybody. So I'd like to conclude with a story about prayer. And prayer is such an integral part of having a relationship with God. Everybody says, what's the most important thing in a relationship? Communication. Well, prayer is our communicating with God. And believe it or not, God does answer. There's a story about a man who had a very hard time making ends meet, and he didn't have a job. And his wife suggests maybe go to the rabbi and see what the rabbi suggests. So he goes to the rabbi, and the rabbi says, "I'll pray for you. I should go into business." So what business? He says, maybe hats. So he goes and buys a bunch of hats. He scrounges together the money, and he goes to the marketplace, and it's a disaster. No one's buying any of his hats. It feels terrible. And he went to the market in this particular town, and that's it. Now, some of the people other vendors that were coming from his hometown, that came to this town to sell whatever they had, they were leaving. But he said, you know what, it's afternoon services are starting soon. I want to go to the synagogue, go to afternoon services. I don't know how I'll get home, but hopefully I'll figure it out. So he went to afternoon service, went to mincha, and he prayed with the minyan very happily, even though it was sad that he didn't sell anything. And then he came out, it was raining, and all the hats are all soaking wet. Oh, boy. And he doesn't know how he's going to get back home, so he's pulling the wagon with the hats, and he stops at the road, hoping that someone will give him a ride. And lo and behold, a stranger comes by and says, "Hey, what do you have in there?" He says, "Hats." "Oh, great, I'm looking for a hat." "Well, my hats are wet." Well, let me take a look. And man looks inside. Finally finds one dry hat. And he says, "Great, I'll buy this from you." And then the man looks and says, "Hey, oh, shucks, I must have left my money bag at home. And I don't live in the neighborhood, I live far away. I guess I can't purchase the hat from you." All right, well, the man didn't even get this one sale, so he was a little disappointed, but that's what it is. So he gets a ride finally, eventually makes it back home, and his wife says, "How's the day?" He says, "Well, not well at all. I didn't sell anything, and he got ruined in the rain, and one person finally came, and well, let's take out your hats and let's dry them up, and maybe tomorrow's another day." And lo and behold, they look into the wagon, and they see the man's money bag. Oh my gosh, and they couldn't find any identifying information about it, and they didn't know who he was. He himself said he was from far away, a stranger, and he was rewarded with this beautiful money bag filled with money. But he realized it was not his effort. It was because he decided to pray the afternoon service. So the parasha has many lessons, but one of them is the importance and power of prayer. Yes, daily prayer, and if we can, in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, but also any time we need something. God's ears are open, waiting to hear from us. And nothing is too mundane from God. God cares about us and loves us, and therefore wants to hear from us, and wants us to pray to Him, to connect to Him, to realize that He's in charge. And when we realize He's in charge and we let go of control, then God does take over. Have a wonderful Shabbos. All the best.